Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I am back with another video for Picket Studios, and today I'm excited to be introducing you to a perfect way to say hello. This is a curated kit from Picket Fence, so it includes a mister, oh, what do they call them? The Deco Gel black gel pens. It also has these sequins. I don't think the sequins have a name, but there's like purples and yellows and greens, really pretty. That paper splatter I showed you is antique linen. And then there's the Hugs for You die set. And kind of the main piece of this is the a perfect way to say hello die set. It's got all these different animals: squirrels, bears, raccoons, bunnies, deer, and their base layer, as well as a tree and lots of little die cut sentiments. There's tons of cute ways you can use them, and I'm going to actually show you how you can even stretch them even more. There's 13 flocking sheets in varying sizes, lots of neutrals so that you can make your animals fuzzy. And then it also includes two full white, like full-size white flocking sheets. Here you can see they're all self-adhesive. They die cut like a dream, and then you just peel that backer off and you can adhere them down. In addition to that, there is some heavyweight cardstock that's all an 8.5 by 11. There's a dark gray, a medium green, a light green, black, craft, which almost actually matches the back of the box. And then there is a full sheet of Tim Holtz Ranger watercolor paper. So let's get into the creating. Oh, before we that, so here is the tree. I'm going to cut that out of the craft, and then so that way I can do all of my ink blending at one time. I did just want to note the price in case. So the main kit is $49.99, but is a value of $99. So it's a really good value. And then they have another one with an additional stamp and die. The Friendship Matters stamp and its coordinating die, and this one is $66.50 and valued at $132. Well, $132.99. So anywho, let's talk about the creating now, just so that way you know, getting out ahead of it. And it's one of those, like, when it's sold out, it's sold out. You guys know how this rolls. These kits, they're just available as long as they're in stock. So I love a tone on tone, and so this medium green shade gave me the opportunity to use the stencil that's in the kit to create a tone on tone background, which is going to add interest, but it's not going to detract away from our focal point, which I am here for. I'm using my paper inking palette to kind of hold it in place, which is great because it keeps my fingers clean. And then I just picked out some greens. So what did I use? I used crushed olive, peeled paint, and rustic wilderness. And I'm kind of creating like a halo. I'm going to be honest with you. Because the tree is so large, it's a very generous size, you can't really see the halo. You end up just being able to see the majority of the outside edge of the leaves. But that's okay. In case you want to, use this particular technique, and design a card that is different than mine, I always like to leave in the full process. So once I did all my stenciling, I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle. So I just went back in with the same colors, and I put, the crushed olive in from the outside more toward the center, and then blended out with the peeled paint and the rustic wilderness. If you're not familiar with the liquid paper splatters from Picket Fence, they have a lot of different colors, and I think it would be really fun to maybe put one of those in the background here. I ended up using mine today, that antique linen on the tree, but you could probably use it on both, honestly. I liked the idea of adding it to the tree because that was going to be more my focal point, and my background was just going to be my background. But maybe if I had a card where my focal point didn't have so much going on, that might be, something else that I think would be interesting. Also, if you turn it, and I think I saw one of the design team members. So if you turn it to where it's a horizontal card or a landscape card, the tree is perfectly sized to fit that. Like the height is 4.25. So then you have more room for the background to show on the left and right hand sides. So I cut out my tree out of the craft cardstock, and I did keep the center. And then from here, we're just going to add some shading and some texture to make our tree a little bit more interesting. You could also do this with alcohol markers. I chose to just use my Distress inks and my blender brushes. And I went really warm for the most part. So I did a brushed corduroy, a gathered twigs, and then for the darker shading, I did switch to a little bit cooler with walnut stain. And then the darkest color is that scorched timber. But here you can see I'm not taking a lot of time to make sure it's really super blended because it's tree bark. So it's okay if it looks a little rough. In real life, tree bark is a little rough. So, yeah, it's totally fine if it doesn't go on totally smooth. But if you want it to be smoother, then just start off the edge of your cardstock and bring it on. So here for the oval, I'm doing it walnut stain. I want this to be dark because I'm going to have my bear popping out of it. Now, if you have gotten the little variety pack of the life-changing blending brushes, then you have gotten one of these, which is a really, really thin blending brush, which is great for getting in here and adding kind of like the stripes to the bark. I did have to make sure that I was careful with how much ink I picked up since my scorched timber is really new. There is a lot of ink to pick up. So you could see when I first added the shading to the branch, like it was pretty heavy duty. And so that was like my first kind of lesson to like, okay, back it up. Your ink pad's really juicy. So from there, I just kept it kind of really light, added some texture to it, added the darkest color around the edge of that oval. And then if you feel like maybe there's a little bit too much separation, you can always go back in with a larger blending brush. I went in with the mid-tone, the gathered twigs, and just made sure it was all blended. And then once I was happy with that, I'm going to... Oh, I missed it. I apologize. So the splatters are already there. I don't know where that footage went, but basically I just added water to the paper splatters and then I used a fan brush to just splatter it all over the tree trunk. I apologize that is not there, and then I did not notice it until we were in voiceover position. So for all of the bases, I cut them all out of white. I also cut the hello and the friend. This full sentiment actually says friends are family, but I just want that friend portion, and I'm going to cut a couple of those out of white. For the actual bodies and faces of my little guys, I am going to trim them out so that I can conserve as much of my, is it felt? I think it's felt. It's very soft. It's like flocking. But so I can conserve as much as possible, I will lay my dies out and then I will trim around them. So you might think it's weird that I cut the, here's something to note. Sometimes the low-tack tape doesn't stick that great to the like fabric. If you have a problem with that, I will flip it over, and here you can see I'm taping it to the actual die itself. And yes, when I die cut it, it'll cut through there, but that's okay, because I'm going to peel off that backer piece anyway. So here, now I've gone through and I've cut out each of my individual pieces, so that way I can start building my little guys. And I did trim each of these down to, like I said, conserve as much of that felt as possible. For the white pieces, I am just using my alcohol markers to go over the edge to make sure there's not going to be any white edge showing. And you'll notice that I've cut the squirrel, but I have not cut the entirety of the squirrel. And that's because I'm not going to use the squirrel. I'm going to use this sounds so morbid. I am going to use the pieces parts of the squirrel to build out my other images to show you how, even just within the confines of the kit, you can really stretch it out and get more bang. And you guys know that that's what I'm all about. I'm all about stretching your products to get different looks and to get all that you can out of them. Now, obviously, you know, there's more picket fence products that you could pair this with. You know, some of the leaves, I think there's one of the ones that I had originally pulled out was, why can't I think of the name of it? Was the, fall foliage. Like, so you can add leaves to your little tree, or acorns. That would be great. The grassy hill, that would be, you know, great for your little critters. But within the kit, what my game plan is to use the body of the squirrel. Now, I used it with the bear, but I feel like you could use it for any of them except the deer. And with the deer, it's because you would have smooth hooves and not claws, per se. So I trimmed that off after I adhered my felt down. I'm going to end up changing that. But anyway, we're moving on to the bear. I found it easiest to work from the top down. So I put my ears on, and then I went in with the marker and just made sure that that was filled in. Now I'm going to go in with the actual top of the bear's face. And I found it easiest to kind of hold it by the edges and line up the middle. And then I just let it go and it fell into place. I used tan for the mouth of the bear. And that once I had the largest portion in place, everything else was really easy to just pop in, except for I grabbed the wrong nose. I actually grabbed the nose for the raccoon. And so I tried to put it in there, and I was like, no, you're not right. So I just stuck it to a piece of the release paper and set it off to the side, and then got the actual nose for the bear. No big deal. But these are super cute. And maybe you could do a card where you cut the tree branch in half so that it was, and laid it on its side so it was more like a log, and you can do little faces popping over the edge, or you can make it more of an interactive card where, you had the little guys on wobbly, put the heads on little wobbles, and that would be really, really cute. This one I am going to do here. This is where I told you I was going to change it. So originally I did the dark brown for the body and the hands, claws, paws. I think it's paws. But then I switched it back to the light brown that we used for the bear's face so that they would really be set apart. Here's the other thing with that felt, just like anything else, it can be colored with alcohol markers. And so I am just going to go in with my black, and I'm just going to dab it right on the ends so it looks like he has little black toenails, fingernails, finger toes. What do we call those? Claws. That's what we're calling them. So he's little black claws. And then for the raccoon, remember with the bear, I felt more comfortable like building it from the top down because there was so much white at the base. I felt more comfortable building the raccoon from the bottom up. So just kind of play around with what seems to be, work better for you. And then I'm going to put on his little ears. I did go with the lighter gray for my raccoon, but there's a dark gray that would work equally as well. For the eyes, his little mask around his eyes, I had already cut that out of black. If I had to do it all over again, I maybe would have cut it out of gray. So that way, when I went to go put in his eyes and they were cut out of black, I wasn't so worried you wouldn't be able to see it. I also did his ears like a little dusty pink color, which is one of the ones that's included in there. I did find that I had much better luck arranging them when using my tweezers, but obviously you do whatever works for you. So the little mask, like I popped his little eyes out of, but I didn't want to just leave them white. You could maybe try sticking some pearls to them as well. Like you'd have to play around and see how well that would work. With them being like an actual fabric, whether or not like the little pearls or sequins or whatever would stick to them, but that might be an option as well. What I ended up doing was I put his mask down with from the black felt, and then from the white, which I had left over from the outside that I cut, I filled in the whole thing with the white so everything was flush. And then I went back in with my Copic marker, and you could use a Sharpie, anything will work. And then I just dotted in his little eyes, and that worked really well. So here you could totally do it like this and leave his little face popping out, but I'm going to use that tail portion from the squirrel. I didn't need to cut another backer because I've only used the claws. So I'm going to cut some gray and some black out of the little squirrel. And then I wanted the bear to have pink ears as well. And the bear doesn't have an ear insert. So what I did was I cut 2 of the bear's nose out of the pink. And I'm going to flip those upside down to be the insides of his ears. So if you just look at a couple of things, and see maybe the shapes that are there, you can really start to build out your characters just within the kit to make it extra and your own, even though it's the same kit for everybody. So in order to make my squirrel tail a raccoon tail, I am going to cut my black felt, and they stick to each other with no problem, no issues. And that way I can stick one to the other and add the little stripes to make it a raccoon tail. Now, do you need to be as particular as I am being? No, absolutely not. You could just stick them and that would be fine. But I didn't want to have to do any extra trimming. I wanted mine to just line up. So that is why I chose to use the buffer piece in between. So that way I knew that they were going to line up. As my husband always says, work smarter, not harder. And so that way I didn't have to figure out the angle I needed. So once I had all of those down, then I could go in and arrange everything. I did the bear's ears first. So this is just his nose turned upside down, cut out of pink. And, I think you could probably do the same thing, like use one of the eyes out of pink to add some like blush to their little cheeks. That would be super cute. I probably wouldn't, the dusty pink would probably be okay, but they have more of like a sweetheart pink that I think would probably be a better fit. But anyway, so now I'm going to go in and I'm going to arrange everything and start gluing it down to itself. So the bear claws will go onto the tree first, then the bear's head, then the raccoon's head, and then that way I will be able to move them all as one piece. I want to pop those up on foam and have the raccoon tail be adhered to the background so that there is a little bit of depth in between. But yeah, these were really fun to put together. You guys know me, I do struggle a little bit with the finicky pieces, but I will say once I had them all cut out, it really was not a struggle to put them together. And that's coming from somebody who does not love the finicky portions of die cuts. So yeah, they're very cute. I think there's a lot of different things that you can do with them, or you could just use the tree and maybe pair it with some leaves for a like an autumn card or a thinking of you. Nature is always great for the random thinking of you or sympathy cards or things of that nature. So on a personal note, obviously this is a little bit shorter of a video for me, and so we don't have a lot of time for story time, but I will just ask you, so both it always happens around the holidays, right? Both my mom and dad have managed to get themselves the flu, and so Mom, because she is immunocompromised, we did have to just be a little bit more careful. She was showing up signs of a fever. So I did end up having to take her to the ER last night. Thankfully, they found out it was the flu. They ran some tests and made sure like her breathing was good and everything was good before they sent us home with some Tamiflu. So thank the Lord for that. And so now I am taking my emergency and airborne and everything else to try to make sure that I do not catch it, and I also don't catch it and then give it to my children. So if you could just send a little prayer up for my mom and dad, and then also for me to not get sick, that would be much appreciated. I know it is the season, and really, like, when we got to the ER, like, we really got there at a good time because there was nobody there when we got there. But when we were getting ready to leave, like, when I was going out to get the car, there was, like, probably 7 or 8 people. It was a lot. They'd filled up quickly. So I'm glad that we got in when we got in, because even as it was, when did we get there? I think we got there at like 7 and we didn't get home until 11:30. So it was already like it was a full evening. Anywho, so back to the card. I have done my little hello friend, made my own sentiment, which I love, that they're that versatile. And then here I'm picking out some gold and green sequins out of the mix, and I am using those to accent my sentiment, just working in odd numbers. And I find that they stay the best if I add just like a little dot of glossy accents in the center. So I went ahead and did that. The paper spanner gives me my shimmer on my tree, and then we have the added texture. So there's lots of interesting elements. I hope that you'll head over and check out the kit. Like I said, first come, first serve. Also, they have a sale on their clearance items as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.